With the NFL's players and coaches showing up for training camp, it marks the beginning of the 2024 NFL season. With that being said, there are many teams that have made many moves en route to being contenders to the Kansas City Chiefs three-peat. Would you believe that there are still fans out there that believe that there are no teams out there that can threaten the Kansas City's quest for a three-peat?
I don't believe anything. Don't smash it.
Well, you better believe it. Want to find out who I believe is one of the top two teams to contend for that title and destroy the Chiefs' hopes at a three-peat? Find out next on Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Guys, thank you so much for spending some time with us on Gridiron Gab Pro Style, this being the TC edition. As of course you hanging with your boy CeeLo, and there have been a lot of things that I've been involved in. Of course, many of you have seen me on Facebook and seen what I'm involved in. I'm a part of many groups on Facebook, most of them just strictly football groups and whatnot, some sports groups. But I wanted to give you guys a taste of what I'm having to deal with as we look here. I'm going to mention these groups, and guys, I want you to go by and jump on these because a lot of these places have some really good dialogue. Some of the ones that I'm reading here today are not really good dialogue, but for the most part, I get a lot of good dialogue here. And then, of course, some of it's just salty fans that don't really know the game. And then there's going to be a lot of people that don't think I know the game. But what I bring to you, I bring a lot of analysis backed up by a lot of supporting facts. But without further ado, let's get into it. Brett says, this is from Sports Center. This is the group on, these are my groups on Facebook, you guys. And all of these are comments on how the Miami Dolphins will be a team that will stop the Chiefs three-peat. Brett says, I can't even take this stuff serious. They aren't even the best team in their division.
Oh, really? No, I'm afraid I'm going to have to know a little bit more than that.
Who is, Brett? I know you're not going to say the Jets. I know you ain't going to say the Patriots. I know blame well you're not going to say Buffalo. So who is? We don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do.
Stop the cap.
Now, there is a possibility they could win the division and possibly, But to say they're not even the best team in their division, well, who is? I think the Dolphins, yeah. Miami has the most depleted D in the AFC East. Well, Adam, this is what Adam said. Adam, I hate to tell you this, but that's based on injuries, not losses. They did lose Xavier Howard, but they recovered from that. And they still have money in the tank. Go back and watch the show.
You don't get it, do you?
Then we go to All Sports 241. Justin says, not if they're all frozen, LOL. Boo.
Cut it out.
Then we go to the group, The Herd, with Colin Cowherd. KC says, no QB.
What?
Last I checked, they just paid Tua X amount of dollars. I'm not sure if you're trying to say I didn't mention the QB because everybody knows about Tua. Tua's played well when he stayed upright. Then Eric says, ha ha ha. Chief haters reaching the Dolphins. They did such a great job the last two times they played.
What the?
Okay. Well, the other point that's made here is they did not have an Odell Beckham, and they didn't have the type of pass rush that they undoubtedly will have now.
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the
And
question.
they have a heck of a lot better secondary than one Kansas City has.
You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Then Lenny says STFU.
Dumb shit! Dumb shit!
Of course you guys know that, and I will not do that, Lenny. We will shut down Tyree again. Now, I think he meant Tyreek again, and sack Tua and give him another concussion. I don't see how you're going to do that. I really don't. I think ultimately what it boils down to is now they have a third option. Not to mention, they got better defensively, and you guys got worse defensively. So while we're sitting here discussing this, I told you guys that there are 3 levels of weaknesses that the Chiefs have. No matter how good Patrick Mahomes plays, the 2 strengths that you have to have on a defense that can fluster Patrick Mahomes is going to be pass rush without having to blitz, and a secondary that can cover. Miami has both. Go back and watch the show. Another Pat McAfee show, Michael said, have to make the playoffs. Tua is one head slap away from having to retire. Last year he was a fluke. Dolphins shouldn't pay him now. Wait until the bye week. If the dude played every game without an injury, pay him.
Bruh.
Well, here's the thing.
You don't get it, do you? I'll explain it to you.
Oh, really?
I don't agree with that.
Who cares?
You can sit here and say it's a fluke if you want to, but here's the other thing. Guys like that, see guys, I'm writing this stuff down because I'm taking notes. I'm going to keep up with this so I can kind of remind a lot of you. You have the freedom of speech, but that's just like myself. I hold myself accountable when I don't say something correctly.
What a dumbass!
But to sit out here and post this kind of gibberish.
Dumb shit! Dumb shit! Dumb shit!
You know, come on. Let's not do that. Let's try to be truthful and try to be real when it comes to what's being said and how it's being said. But as far as everything else on the door front, as far as everything else on the doorstep of where we're at, everything is going well. I haven't seen very much as far as the activity, guys, and we need to change that.
I'm just asking you one more time.
We really need to change that, you guys.
Is that your best? That was pathetic.
But let's get into the nitty gritty of why we're here tonight. We have another team that will demonstrate and will beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and that team would be C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans.
Stop the cap!
I know. I'm like, listen, I'm a Carolina Panther guy, but I love this kid. I loved him, wanted him on my squad when he came out of Ohio State. But that doesn't mean I don't support Bryce Young. I'm going to go on record and say I endorse Bryce Young, but I loved C.J. Stroud as well. And honestly, let's do this. Let's go for where it is. This guy's got no place to go but up. And the reason why I see these guys as a major threat to the
Who cares?
Kansas City Chiefs is I want to take you guys to I want to direct you guys to 2 games. The first game we look at was the first time the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans played. This was a 25-9 game where, and this is in all fairness to all of these games. We're going to go look at this game and we see Dameon Pierce had 11 carries, 38 yards. Lamar Jackson was 17 of 22, 169, and threw an interception. But then you go and you look at Lamar Jackson, 6 carries for 30 yards. But then you look at this game and it's just like, what happened here? Because you look at it, it was J.K. Dobbins 7-0. You're looking at 2 touchdowns in the third quarter from the Baltimore run game. That really was what was the clincher. You had 14 points right there. 15 points because they went for 2 on the Justice Hill touchdown run. And you look at the stats, 268 to 265, in total yardage. Passing yards, they outgained them. Rushing yards, the Baltimore Ravens obviously had the edge. But then you have to look at the time of possession, which is equal. You had a fumble lost by the Houston Texans. And what's amazing is the Houston Texans had got 4 sacks on Lamar Jackson, 5 by CJ on the Ravens got on CJ Stroud, but CJ Stroud protected the football exceptionally well. As always, I'm not looking at the first downs or even the third down efficiency. What really sticks out to me is the fact that the Texans were only able to get 3 field goals and they had 1 less turnover. This is more on what I like to call play calling.
It's official. You suck.
Bobby Slowick's got to do a better job. And the reality of it is, he's got the weapons to do it now. Bobby Slowick called a really bad game plan. And this is really what I'm saying. If these two teams meet again, I don't see Baltimore winning this game because of the lack of pass rush they're going to have. Well, let me rephrase that. They still have a good enough pass rush because of the type of blitz packages they bring. But unlike many opportunities in the past, this is not a game that the Ravens want to play. I'm going to go blitz, 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 blitz. Because now now the Texans have more weapons at their disposal. And I want to tell you something. This is where I'm going to try to talk about this, but I want to talk about the personnel moves down the line. I'm trying to avoid that at all costs, but I'm almost pushing to make that talk. But I guess what I can do is mention them as I go. When you talk about adding a Stephon Diggs to, and I'm not just talking about the matchup with Baltimore, but what I'm saying is, to me, Baltimore is the one matchup that is going to keep them from facing Kansas City unless they face them face up early. Now, we know they face off this season. We already know that story. But here's the true blue reality when we're talking about what the Texans bring into this whole narrative that they can knock off the three-peat. Because as long as they hang around, this is the truth. As long as they hang around, this is going to be a problem for them. I think Baltimore presents a different matchup for them. What? Kansas City does not want to see Houston. That's the reality. They do not want to see Houston. And like I said, I'm going to tell you why. The truth of the matter is, I'm discussing the Baltimore game because Baltimore seemed to have their number. A lot of that was because of the offensive line. And the truth of the matter is, we can go ahead and we can take a look at it. I'm trying to hold this back, but this does not work unless I am able to discuss this in full detail.
You fucking idiot.
Now, the way we look at the way this game is going to go, you see you got an upgrade with Joe Mixon over Devin Singletary. Now, the reality of this is, Joe Mixon makes this team 10,000 times better because he is a home run breaker. They did not have that. As much as people liked Singletary as well as Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce had a great rookie season, but he ain't Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon nearly had 1,000. I think he did have 1,000 yards last season, and that was limited carries in Cincinnati, you guys. Behind a straight up passing offense. And whether people want to admit it or not, he's got a history of beating Kansas City. The reason why the Bengals did not win the Super Bowl was because Mixon didn't get his carries.
Supreme victory.
He got, I think, 11, 12 carries for right at high 70s. The way you stop a team that has a good pass rush, run right at them. You can't stop running at them. I know people are going to say, well, San Francisco didn't win. Well, San Francisco didn't stay at it. You got to keep pick, especially if you're playing good defense. You can't keep saying, okay, the best way to get Mahomes is to keep letting him think he's got a shot, especially with that team he had last year. This year is going to be a different story, but the thing is, you can't panic. You got to stick with the game plan. Like I said, Joe Mixon is a huge upgrade from where they were last year. But then you have to also look at a major liability that the Houston Texans had. To me, like I said, Joe Mixon is a huge upgrade. And you look at where the offensive line was. The biggest problem I saw with the offensive line was the injuries. The injuries and the lack of continuity. This was where C.J. Stroud got sacked a bunch. He got sacked a bunch for a kid that threw for over 4,000 yards. Laremy Tunsil is that dude. There ain't no ifs, ands, and buts. Trent Howard and Blake Fisher, the rookie out of Notre Dame, will be fighting for that right tackle position. Then you got Shaq Mason, Juice Scruggs, and Kenyon Green. Now, as I said, Laremy Tunsil's that dude. But it's going to be Blake Fisher or Howard that they're going to be looking at to see who's going to secure that other side of C.J. Stroud. And then they got to get better in the interior. They got to be able to get some push in the running game. I was surprised that the Texans did not make a significant push for anybody in the free agent market. That was my biggest concern when I first saw what the Texans did on offense. And to be honest with you, when you're sitting here watching this Ravens game, and even the Chiefs, because they both have real aggressive style defenses. Now, I will say more along the line of that the Chiefs go at you at more desperation, and the Ravens do more bump and run coverage, and I would say grabbing. They get away. Their DBs get away with a lot of grabbing. But I do love Kyle Hamilton. But I know a lot of people say, well, how are you talking about the Ravens when you're supposed to be about the Chiefs? Well, ultimately, if the Texans don't meet the Chiefs head on in the playoffs, they're not going to be able to get there. So that's why I'm talking about, to me, the Houston Texans were more at trying to figure out how to beat the Ravens. That's why they went out and got Stephon Diggs. Because you look at the way this offense was built, if they get in a situation where you've got Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Noah Brown, and Dalton Schultz, you could get Stephon Diggs out there on a bubble screen with those blockers out there, and it's good night. It's going to be good night. And then not to mention those corner routes that C.J. Stroud loves to play and throw. You got guys like Dell and Diggs that are so fast off the line of scrimmage. And you can't argue with Nico Collins as well. These guys get off the line of scrimmage so fast. And, the reality of it is this team is going to spell disaster for a lot of teams. And let's get away from the Ravens for a minute, you guys. Let's talk about Kansas City in general. Because I was going to do one separate game apiece, but they were both pretty much the same type of game in one. C.J. Stroud ended up on his back. Bobby Slowick not doing a great job coaching this game and adjusting. But then again, I love what love what Nick Cesario did. I love what he did. He said, okay, I don't have a game breaker in the backfield. I need one. So he went and got one. And the reality of it is, this is where you guys, if you're a Houston Texans fan, you got to be elated because think about it like this. Every setback is a setup for a comeback.
What? Put some
cheesy, I know. But the Houston Texans, whether people realize this or not, they still sit on $18.5 million in cap space. And I ain't talked about the defense yet, but I'm about to. But the biggest thing when you talk about Kansas City, one of its biggest liabilities is going to be on that defense. That's secondary. You have to remember that you let your best color corner walk. Who you going to have to cover Stephon Diggs? You can't double cover him and Tank Dell. What you going to do with Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz? That's 4 guys in your secondary already gone. And you got to get pressure somehow. You don't have the animals and beasts. You still got Chris Jones, Carl Loftus. You still got those guys. I get it. But you ain't going to be able to get pressure with just them. Even if you can drop 7 into pressure, C.J. Stroud has got Joe Mixon out of the backfield. Let's even flip it now to the one side of the ball that the Texans immensely improved on, at least on paper. Let's do it that way, at least on paper. Because when I saw what they did, they kept Will Anderson Jr., Christian Harris, and Toa. And then they upgraded. They let Jonathan Greenard, which I thought was not a good move. And Malik Collins was pretty good. Sheldon Rankins was pretty good. But then they turned around and they went out and they got the guy whom, in my opinion, is going to just absolutely wreak havoc next year in Danielle Hunter. Greenard, I think, had 10.5 sacks, and then you bring in 16-sack Danielle Hunter, who had nobody.
Run.
On his other side. But he had somebody, Carolina re-signed him. But then you had Danico Autry, in which you got rid of from Malik Collins, who was okay. Now, Fatou Kassi, in my opinion, was not Sheldon Rankins. I felt like the Texans should have held on to him. Could you imagine how great this defense would have been if they held on to Sheldon Rankins? Wow. Then you had Algier, who had a ton of tackles in that linebacker, but then they get Blake Cashman, a guy who had just as many tackles, if not more. And then this is the thing that gets me is Kansas City's defense has been decent at best. Then we think about their offensive line. It's been admirable. But now you got all these pass rushers on Houston, and then you think about a young Will Anderson who's coming into his own with a Danielle Hunter on the other side of him. Y'all better ask somebody. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I honestly thought that the one mistake that they made in this entire system was replacing their secondary. Now, they kept Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward to go with Derek Stingley. Now, Steven Nelson had a just about even keel with Jeff Okudah, but his completion percentage was lower than Jeff Okudah, who's had a rough go at it since he's been in the NFL, but he's also been asked to be the number one. Then you got a guy by the name of Kamari Lassiter, who was drafted out of Georgia, and then you got Desmond King, as well as C.J. Henderson. Now, if you guys remember, the Houston Texans not only got 2 free agents, they also got Amir Robertson out of Oakland from the Oakland Raiders. So you're talking about 2 really good players that the Houston Texans were not playing when they went out and they got these guys. They were not close to playing. They were on this whole, we're going to compete and we're going to win. The Houston Texans are coming. You know how Dion keeps saying they coming? No, you guys, these guys are coming. These guys are coming. There is no ifs, ands, and buts about it. These guys are coming. And they're coming with a vengeance. They are coming with a vengeance, and there's no one going to stop them. Because really, a lot of the issue that this team had last year was the secondary. The secondary was a huge problem for this team. They couldn't get it done because they couldn't keep guys in front of them. They could not keep guys in front of them. But they went out and they addressed this. They went out and they addressed it, and they addressed it big time. The Texans understand that they have to do what they need to do in order to take advantage of the cap-friendly salary that one C.J. Stroud has, and I don't blame them. They found their golden goose, and they are taking advantage of it. But looking around at what the Houston Texans have done and what they're attempting to pull off is they are basically locked in as to doing what is best for their football franchise at this point. Now, that's cliche to say, but let's look at it, because they did lose Denzel Perriman to the Chargers. I was very concerned about that one, because I would have had to pay that guy, just like I would have had to pay Sheldon Rankins. That was a guy that I felt like if they bring him back, they bring this guy back, oh my goodness, what are you talking about here? But as it relates to the Kansas City Chiefs, this defense, it doesn't nearly have as many holes as it once did. When you look at this team, not only do you have a dynamic pass rush, you can do it with 4 guys. We have all seen that when Patrick Mahomes has an issue when it comes to the pass rush, a lot of times what happens is he will force the ball. He will force the ball down the field, and especially with the receivers the dynamic receivers that he has now. I'm not saying that this will cost them to miss the playoffs, but what I am saying, it could cost them a playoff game. And it is going to cost them this year, especially if they meet this Houston Texans team. If they meet this Houston Texans team, they're not going to have a shot. And they better hope this is at full strength, because then on the flip side, let's look at the Kansas City defense versus the Houston offense. They've got a lot of pressure, but the reality of it is you don't have enough guys to cover. If this Texans defense plays up to its potential, you only have 2 guys. I'm sorry, KC. You're going to have to bring the house. And when that happens, CJ Stroud's going to read it and react. That's one thing I've seen. CJ Stroud likes to get rid of that ball quick if given that his guys get open. He didn't make a lot of mistakes with the football. That is one thing you as the Kansas City Chiefs don't have to worry about counting on. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes. And here's the truth about what we're talking about when it comes to CJ Stroud. Now he has a running back. Bobby Slowick should put this ball in his belly at least 20 times a game. And that guy being Joe Mixon. Oh, they also got Cam Akers on free agency too.
Outstanding. Well done.
So this team is gearing up for a blame run. While we sitting here talking about, this 3-peat. Man, Kansas City, y'all might not win another one.
Shut up, shithead.
It's not funny, Ed. Hey, shut up!
You heard me? They might not ever win again.
You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Now, before we get ready to close, we've looked at the matchups from the secondary to the offensive front to every situation we can look at. We can look at it from Houston's standpoint on defense. That, like as I said in the earlier stages of it, Kansas City's defense has been average at best. A lot of it is that Mahomes is able to move the platform, the throwing platform. And then Andy Reid, being who he is, has been just phenomenal at finding different ways to get teams to back away, finding ways to get the ball out of Mahomes' hands fast and effectively. Isaiah Pacheco's a good running back, but not with this defense. And then let's not forget, this is DeMeco Ryans. He might be the head coach, not the DC, but guess what? You can best believe he is in on darn near every defensive play call they make. Don't count it out. DeMeco Ryans is not going to let you run the football on him. You might throw it a little bit, but he's tried to change that this season. My prediction, the Houston Texans meet and defeat the Kansas City Chiefs and put a stymiling halt to the attempt at a Kansas City three-peat and possibly kill any hopes of Mahomes ever winning another ring.
You weak, pathetic fool. Too easy.
Let me know what you guys think. Hit me up in the comments. I know you Kansas City fans will. As well as go to my Facebook. Go to the Gridiron Gab Pro Style Facebook. and leave a comment there. Let me know what you guys think about it all. Are you Kansas City fans irate that I picked another young contender to come after your title and dethrone you? Or are you guys just wanting to live in this dream forever and ever, like a fairy tale? Now that the season has officially kicked off, the dream is over. You're just going to have to accept it. You got 5 contenders. Oh, I promised y'all 6. So we got one more show. One more contender has emerged that will put the brakes on the Chiefs' three-peat. Check it out, guys. But until the next time, this is Mr. CeeLo. You guys stay safe, and if you're in the South, stay cool. But until we talk again, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.